I'm going to start us off with a land acknowledgement. The 2024 National Conference on Ending Homelessness is being held on the traditional unceded territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin peoples. The peoples of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation have lived on this territory since time immemorial. Their culture and presence have nurtured and continue to nurture this land. The Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness acknowledges the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples from coast to coast to coast who participate in this conference and lead the work to end homelessness across Turtle Island. We have two presentations today in the session LE4, Lived Experience on Screen, Advocacy Through Film. So I'm going to introduce our two kind of streams and then pass it over to themselves to give more fulsome introductions. So we have David Alton with the Kitchener Lived Experience Working Group, and then after that we'll be hearing from Rebecca Haynes, who is the co-chair of the People's Action Group with the MCC. So I will pass it over to David now, and then I will jump in after that presentation and give a more fulsome introduction as well for our second presentation.
Can I just press present to make it go big?
I hope so. There you go.
Hi everyone. It's a pleasure to meet you all here this morning. I'm not in the mic. It's a pleasure to have you all here today. So my name is David Alton, and I'm the facilitator of the Lived Expertise Working Group. This is a project that was started as a collaboration between the Social Development Center of Waterloo Region, kind of a social planning kind of organization, and then the City of Kitchener, who came together to create this group. And now it is fully embedded within the City of Kitchener as a long-standing part of its policy planning. So that's a really exciting development. So I'd like to the group is not really me. I'm just here to do the flowery introductions. The group is our members. So today, I already broke my earring. Sorry, one must look perfect before speaking. But yes, so here today from the group, we have Char, Donald Lacasse, Julian Ickham, Malik Butt, and then from the City of Kitchener, we have Garrett Stevenson and Rosa Bustamante. We also have from our group today, Heather Major in the audience, and I'd also like to recognize our members who are not with us today. So that includes Meredith Radline, Latasha Wilson, Milo Hansen, and Udanifer Green. And I'd also like to take just a moment to remember all victims of class war and class warfare and the struggle. I've been thinking a lot about that. I was at the Death and Memorial one, and part of our advocacy is also part memorial, because we did lose one of our own working group members this past year as well. So really want to take a moment to reflect on that. So we curated this video this past year as like a piece of advocacy, because even though we work very closely and wonderfully with the City of Kitchener Planning Department, we still have to deal with the City of Kitchener Council and the public and their perspectives of what does it mean to do lived expertise work. And so this was a video we created in that context of trying to communicate to Council why this work is important and why they should fully embed it and fund it moving forward. So enjoy the video, and then we have a little panel of some of our thoughts afterwards.
Okay, welcome. You can see the shot in the monitor right here. You can see what you look like.
It's way better in black and white. Way better.
Hello.
Hello. This angle is good?
Yeah, that's great. Okay, great. Okay, let's roll. Hello.
Hi.
How's it going?
Good. I'm Char. I've been working with homeless people for like over half my life, probably since I was 15, and it continued, and I'm still doing stuff, so I must really like it.
I like to always start by saying I'm a mom. I have two beautiful boys. You know, there's so many layers to being homelessness, because in my own case, it wasn't a case of I couldn't afford it. It was just a case of no one was willing to rent to me. So I wanted to bring that voice and that perspective too.
I came here to study computer science. Like before moving to Canada, I would have not in my wildest dreams imagined that, I would have been living homeless, rough.
I had a convenience store in downtown Kitchener. I saw people experiencing homelessness, and as I got to know the people, I found out that the people that were mostly hanging out at my store were people who could not or didn't want to live in the shelter. So from then on, I started a pop-up shelter, and that went on for a bit until I got evicted.
I was homeless myself, and being part of Tent City, I wanted to be part of the decision making on how we lived and where we went.
So it's not an issue of black and white. It's not an issue of good and evil. At the end of the day, we're all human beings.
You know, if you think about your own children, anything could happen in their life. Life happens. That's why it's called LIFE.
So all of us somehow have experienced something along the lines of either not having a home or having precarious housing situations. And what we're hoping to do with the LEWG is to work together with counselors and work together with politicians to be able to shape a better way of dealing with the housing crisis.
Lived expertise plays a vital role in decision making for cities moving forward, because lived experts are the people that have been impacted the most by these policies.
It's non-negotiable, like you need lived experience, because until you have lived it,
You're never going to really understand what that means. Most folks who end up on council don't end up ever experiencing homelessness.
Like somebody like me, Julian, David, like we're all on the ground. The people that's working in the city and the region, they don't see what we see.
So when somebody's talking to us about like trying to find housing and they're not there yet, or what paperwork they need, or how to fill it out, or all the LEWG has been there, so we know where to send them.
It's not fair for like the little guy if our voices aren't heard.
So how do we do that? We get people at a table and we say, okay, what are our economic problems? What are our economic solutions?
If you're really looking at it from a money perspective too, it's actually more expensive to have people homeless and treat day-to-day symptoms of homelessness rather than to actually house people.
if that money was channeled into providing housing first, where we already know if someone has a space where they call their home, it allows you to bring out your best self.
And the fact that the city is actually trying, I commend them for that.
I'm proud of the city of Kitchener, and I think they're learning from us. I think the LEWG was a driving force in that.
There's still a lot of work to be done, but at least in the LEWG, our voices get heard. We're now working with city planning, and that's going pretty good, actually.
Incorporating these experiences is the right thing to do, and the region is seeing that, and I think we're making good strides towards it.
If we continue on this path of working together, not working against, there's nothing but the best that's going to come out of this. Everyone should be housed. There is no reason why we live in Canada and we have homeless people.
Over the last year and a half, this group has made people see different. So this group needs to stay. It just can't quit. This is me getting emotional. I don't get emotional often.
I just think that it's a no-brainer. And again, like I said, I want to believe that folks are really keen on making meaningful change. And if that is true, then you want to do it with lived expertise. And that's where LEWG comes in. Right?
Perfect. Is there anything else you want to add? No? You feel like you've said? Yeah.
We need you to follow and be the radicals, be the change makers, because as much as we tried, we didn't get it right yet. So, there are big issues to deal with, so go for it. Pick one, get involved, stay involved, make a difference.
Any last comments or things you'd like to add?
It's only a dumb idea until you do it. So don't let anybody tell you you can't do it.
So I just want to take a little bit of a moment of grace for my lovely LEWG members. I mean, it was a lot of work to put together that video, and first off, it's a bit dysphoric seeing yourself on screen, so I just want to give them a chance to collect themselves. And also, that video was each of them had 20 to 40 minute interviews that we had to splice down into, a video that was really going to play for council. And so I just want you to really emphasize just how important, how much insights were shared in the process of making this, that we don't, it's hard to get all to you now. But we have a panel, so hopefully we can at least kind of talk through some of those thoughts and approaches. It's a little bit about what is it like, because I think we're unique in that we're within the City of Kitchener, and that we also, our partnership is with the City of Kitchener Planning Department. So we're not working with social planners, we're working with land use planners, which is a very interesting approach. But who cares what my thoughts are on it? Let's ask some of the group members about their thoughts on this process. So let's first go to our one of our reps from the city, Garrett, who is the chief plan. We have the chief plan. I want to say that we have senior bureaucrats here with the LEWG. I just want you to know that they didn't put us with, junior planners. No, senior planners. Great stuff. Garrett, why did the City of Kitchener establish the Lived Expertise Working Group?
Thank you, David. So in December of 2020, and if you can remember to December 2020, it was a very different time than it is now. And it was a time where everyone in our community was feeling socially isolated, and housing disparity was accelerated for the balance of 2020 for most of the year, and as a result of the pandemic. And we were working on our Housing for All strategy. And the pandemic did influence that. And as a result of that strategy, Council approved 7 priorities. And 2 of them that stand out and I think that are relevant for our discussion today is the first priority was recognizing housing as a human right. And that was the first time that City of Kitchener Council had passed a resolution and had supported that in a documentation. So that was transformational in our thinking and our approach to housing. And the second priority was making decisions about housing and housing policy moving forward that was informed by lived expertise and lived experience. So as a recommendation, as part of that strategy, there was approval to launch a 2-year pilot. I'm happy to say that at the end of that 2-year pilot, it was extended for an additional 2 years while we continue to work through the bureaucratic channels of having an advisory committee that doesn't quite fit in to our normal or typical, I should say, advisory arrangements. So excited that we were 2 years, the pilot was completed, a great success, and we have 2 years additionally. So it was a direction of council at the recommendation of staff.
Bless. And Char, we've been working with Garrett and Natalie for like a year and a half now, and Rosa and the rest of the team are kind of since the past couple of months. What's it like working with them?
First it was rocky because we were like, do we trust them, right? And then Garrett and Natalie, which Natalie's not here, but Garrett and Natalie showed up for their first meeting a year into it because we had somebody else do it first. And that meeting was explosive. We had a call that somebody had got shot at Victoria Park, which is down Willow River Creek. Sorry. And Garrett and Natalie were like, what the heck did we just get into, right? Kind of thing. And they stayed. They stayed through the whole meeting, even though we were like on our phones. We were like, what are we doing? Like, where are we going? Some of us went over to the scene. Some of us went to look for the person. And when we came back, they were still there. Like, they waited. They waited like hours, not just like a little bit. And then we all got emails that night and the next morning making sure we were all okay. Nobody else would have did that. So then there was a little bit of trust that was open that night, the first meeting. And then they've kept their word on everything they have said. And if they don't know if they can do something, they say, we will try, we will see, and we will get back to you. They don't say, yeah, we could do that, and then we never see it. They tell us the truth, and they're just really easy to work with. Yeah. And they drink coffee. And pizza, lots of pizza. We eat way too much pizza.
And Donald, I know when we were prepping for today, you would also kind of raise that moment as being significant. But is there other things that have happened from the past year that have really stood out about working with the planning team?
Well, Char kind of said one of the best times I worked with you guys. The other moment would be we stood up at one point. We stood up for Tent City, and it was against city policies, and we almost got shut down. And these guys stood up for us at council and defended us, and we're still existing because they stood up with us. So it was a very, we can trust these guys. It's very significant because we're still existing. So that would be the next, my second.
Well, and I think that's like a big thing about, navigating the many layers of politics between, direct advocacy, city planning, and then the city. There's like city council, there's like all these different layers, and I think it's been really interesting to see how staff have helped us thread that needle through that process. Malik, and I actually think Julian, we both were kind of talking about this, so maybe we'll do Malik and then Julian on this one. There's a lot of other municipalities, a lot of other communities in the room today. Many of them may be thinking about, maybe it's time we have a lived expertise group. What advice would you give them?
You go first. Okay. Thanks, David. I would say account for the disparities and the different levels, the different tiers in government, because that feels like is a major challenge. Also, different silos in just government. Major challenges we faced was things like, we can't do this. It's not our prerogative. It's another department. So just figuring out what we can do, and also pepper some level of accountability in the process, so it just doesn't seem like tokenization.
Power concedes nothing without demand. Our comrade Frederick Douglass said that. And when we started the LEWG, we came from our own groups, doing our own organizations, and I don't want people to get this idea that the city is this benevolent thing that came and gave us all these things. So when the LEWG first started, we were working with bylaw. We set up a safe tent city run by drug users, for drug users, to organize ourselves on a political basis, to solve our own problems. Here under capitalism, someone smashes a window, they arrest the kid, they throw him in jail, window doesn't get fixed, whatever. If some beef goes on in our thing, basically we have the People's Revolutionary Tribunal, which is everyone at the tent city, and the idea is to fix the problem. So say she steals from you, we'll all come together and be like, okay, go to Roof, which is like one of these agencies, scam a couple of hampers and bring it to the tent city. And that makes up for it. But anyways, the thing was, the first day of the tent city, our so-called comrades from bylaw were there, and they were telling me that if I don't shut it down, I would be off of the LEWG. And one of the things that the LEWG did was we did support the Ruse Island thing, even after myself and two comrades got arrested. One was an Indigenous woman whose only crime was defending me, because cops hate me and they attacked me. And there was this brave young poet, and so a week later they arrested her, they arrested me at my pharmacy, they arrested someone else. So we were doing our own things. And then the city was like, I went on a hunger strike to drop the charges against the two people because they didn't do anything other than defend me. And assault police charges can fuck up someone's life. I already have a big record, whatever, right? And so we were doing these other things, and the city didn't like it. So the city wanted to shut us down. But we had our organizations within the community. So, like, the city's not going to give you something out of the goodness of the heart. They're capitalist bastards, right? Like,
Okay.
It's the corporation of the city of Kitchener. And we're going to talk about planning later and the role of planning in, like, removing people, social cleansing, and whatever. You have to have your mass organizations run by the people, for the people. Because if you don't have those mass organizations, they will try to make you into another identity politics. And what I mean by that is like what they're doing to the indigenous people here with TV shows like The Sopranos, where like, oh, you have the Italians, and then you have the natives, and then you have this, and we're all happy, chumbawamba, whatever bullshit. They tell you, no, native people, this is their land. Their land got fucking stolen by fucking steel and germ. And like the reality is that the only way those in power will listen to you is if you have some power to back that up. And that power comes from organizing the people themselves, not getting 10 people and having people from the outside come and, oh, we want to fix you and make you be better. No, we believe housing is a human right, and that means that you as a human have that right. A privilege is something that you merit or that is given to you. Housing is a right because you are a human. Not because you're a good human, not because you're a bad human, not because you're a violent protester or a non-violent protester, not because you're a drug user or not a drug user, not because like you're deserving poor or not deserving poor. If you're a human, you own that. And the city won't recognize that because the goal of the city is to make money, expand and build, and like just growth for the sake of growth. So if you want to be listened and if you want to have a LEWG, first create your own voices and your own power bases so you have something to bring to the table. And I'd like to quote Nelson Mandela when he was talking to the cell of Jerry Adams during the peace process. They're talking about disarming the IRA. And Mandela said, never, never, never put down your guns until you get what you want. Now, I'm not talking about armed struggle here or anything, but the thing is, like, political power grows out of the barrel of a gun. I'm talking about gun as the legitimate use of force. If you don't have something to push, to force the city to give to you, they're not going to sit you to the table. You won't get near the table, you know? They'll get the cops to grab you in the middle of the night and like OD you and disappear you, and you don't get near the table. So have your own organizations.
And what I think that's actually a really important point about how the LEWG was formed, is that the creation of the LEWG was moved out of the hands of the City of Kitchener and of the Social Development Center, the third party. So it was there was a jury of independent outreach workers from different organizations who looked at the applications, and they made the decisions, and that meant that there was a real strong recognition throughout the process that the people in the LEWG are doing their own organizing, their own activism on the streets in their own communities, and that independence is important, and that kind of thread has been woven throughout. And so Julian's alluding to, we've been around for 2 years, and it's been rocky. I mean, Julian went to court, and we had to support him through that. There was some big tensions with some other parts of the city bureaucracy, and I think that's what the biggest miracle of the LEWG is, that between us, the city planning department, the LEWG members, the broader community of support, that we've been able to keep finding a way to thread through those tensions and recognize the importance of some of this on the ground voices and organizing to keep this. I mean, the fact that we're still here is, I think, a huge testament to the ability to thread that, and that independence brings something very important to the table. But Garrett, this is the advice that you get all the time, right? You've heard many of Julian's important messages, and as well as other members of the group. How does that then turn from LEWG members and inform your decision making?
Thanks, David. Yeah, I think it's really important to realize everyone's lived expertise and their own experience. And really what we do through the LEWG is to channel that storytelling into a way that can influence and have potential outcome difference on typical policy decision making. So, certainly the LEWG was a formalization of a lived expertise working group that involves people with lived experience who are experts, who've been in this field longer than the city has been in this field. And getting everyone together and having a monthly meeting where we sit around and we talk through issues has been totally vital in gaining a better understanding how, we can get brought into the history of everyone's lived expertise and their experience, and figuring out, and really our way as bureaucrats within a municipality is, how do we take that advice? How do we take those stories? How do we take those experiences and put them in a way that in the government systems that we have, how do they have influence, and how can we utilize the power of that storytelling? And so two examples that I think were really important is we were starting on some work for eviction survey and data collection. And we had done our best research about every other municipality, how do they collect data about housing, and we brought those questions to the LEWG, and it was clear right from the very start that we were not asking the right questions. We were asking a lot of, what we think people who have housing security would ask a question about, and not people with lived expertise or experience. And we totally changed the survey, and we were able to grab data and be able to collect data that really tells the story, about how homelessness affects people who are sometimes marginalized within their own community, how homelessness is often brought up because of systemic issues that you don't see when you meet someone right away. And so as a result of that, those questions that we now ask, we have data collection that shows a clear connection between systemic barriers and problems that people have faced over their entire lifetime, and how that results into a housing decision or a housing insecurity today. So by asking the right questions and getting the right data, we're able to do that storytelling. Using that information, using that storytelling to influence policy decisions, the first time that we got to utilize the lived expertise lens is on our rental replacement bylaw. So we're the third municipality in Ontario to have a rental replacement bylaw, and during the housing crisis, when there's been a large provincial direction on supporting landlords in additional housing, it is a tough avenue right now as a government to put in what would be seen as a barrier to bringing more housing online. And using storytelling and using the experiences that we have collected and having the lived expertise and that lens has helped council to humanize what an eviction looks like. What does it mean when a 5-unit building is demolished and something new is being created? And really using that storytelling. And it was the first time that we had used that storytelling within our staff report, and council unanimously supported our rental replacement bylaw. And that was a big move, and I'm really proud of our council for doing that.
Yeah, we've had a year full of really important conversations, especially around tenant protections and tenant rights. Malik, why do you think it's important that lived experts are talked to when governments are developing tenant protections and other tenant policies?
Sure. I think because we have experienced different levels of homelessness, and I have slid down the scale, gone through the eviction process and stuff. So we've been there and we know what it's like. We'd like to support people in this, if they are going through that similar situation, and try to find options for them. Personally, in my experience with the landlord and tenant board, they would, first of all, they declined to do a land acknowledgement, which was surprising. And they, so in my case, I went to Six Nations because they have the Haldeman tract is where Kitchener-Waterloo is on, and so they had the Lands and Resources Department gave me a document saying that, okay, so from this plot of land, we have not received any reparations or whatever. So I took that to the landlord-tenant board and be like, okay, so you're asking me to pay a rent when you yourself have not done this. So of course they did not like that, and eviction process went ahead, and that's in the past. But I'm hoping that by doing this, we are able to actually influence that level of policy change so that it doesn't come to that for a lot of people. And one of our solutions for having an eviction prevention process was actually including education for people that do not know a lot of the problems that Indigenous people have faced and are still currently facing while we are here, and they're still here. So yeah, I think there's a few things to unpack there, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, your story I find always very inspiring, you know, and I think it really, like, when we looked at the policies and how the different municipalities who have already enacted the policy, it felt like there was a lot of cut and paste, and I really appreciate that we got to, like, sit down with the planning staff and, like, unpack the different, you know, pillars of the rental replacement policy and try and inform as much storytelling into that as possible. And I think I understand why, you know, there's a lot of cut and paste in municipal policy making, but I think having a lived expertise group allowed us to really flesh that out. Char, I know you already talked really about that really important night, but could you speak a little bit more of how the City of Kitchener Planning Department has built trust with the group? Okay, you did already? Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, I can speak more.
If you want to say more, this is your opportunity.
Okay, so we had a run-in with the bylaw. They were regularly, like, part of this group, like, a certain boss lady of our bylaw was coming. She was lying her ass off. So we called her on it. Okay, I called her on it, right? Instead of getting in major trouble, which any other group you probably would have, they stuck up for me, and I love that. But, like I said before, I'll say it again, I'll say it a million times, they don't lie to us. They tell us the truth. If it's something they can't talk about, they'll say, I can't tell you that, you know that, right? Like, I get that there's stuff that they're not allowed to talk about. I'm pretty sure they tell us more than they're supposed to tell us. Yeah, they do love Char. I told you I could make it psycho red. But they're human, and they actually, like, we deal with a lot of different levels of people in this like group, and I mean, like, most of us work together too. So we get treated different in different places that we have to go every day, right? Like, you get treated different. I mean, I'm sure everybody knows that. These guys treat us like we're human. They treat us like we're a person, that we're no different than them, that we're one of their colleagues, that we're their friends. Like, they just treat us like we're human. And we don't get that in a lot of places in Kitchener. I don't know, it's just really cool. Yeah. Rosa's new, so we're still testing her out. So, like, she has a little bit more work to do, and we've only had some meetings with her. And if she eats my pizza, so, like, yeah.
She must be trustworthy.
Yeah. But Garrett convinced us to let her come on the trip because she's a good person, she's human. So far so good. Yeah.
And thank you, Char.
That's Rosa's initiation.
And Julian, I mean, we've mentioned a couple of times, it's hard working with city departments. It's hard working with the state. What do you what is important about the fact that we're working with the urban planning department?
Okay, so society is based on its myth. We're told that Canada came together in confederation because of all this blah, blah, blah bullshit. The reality was, we had this guy named Louis Riel, and he had this idea called republicanism, indigenous republicanism. And so we decided to build a railroad so we could send troops to put him down and make him go across the U.S. and when he comes back, eventually kill him for treason. The creation of the railway was important to unify Canada because it was allow the Canadian government to move troops easily from one place to another to be able to quash uprisings. You had the Fenians, you had the Acadians, you had the Iroquois, you had all sorts of people wanting their rights, and you had like the BNA wanting to control it all, but you can't control it all without the railroad. And the railroad is social planning. Kitchener has a history of gentrification, and the department that does that gentrification is planning. Planning is a department that says what land is used for what. So I'm not interested in platitudes. I don't want to hear people saying, oh, we care about you this and this and this. No, what I want is political power. What I want is the right to determine my own affairs. And if we're going to deal with gentrification, if we're going to deal with the fact that, like, the genocide is going on in Kitchener, Waterloo, with the poisoning of the fentanyl, with things such as xylazine, shutting down the safe injection site, and the only place where you can test for drugs, a place that has saved over 1,000 lives. You know, these decisions are at the purview of planning. And so, like, a genocide is going on. People that we know are dying every day. If I go 10 years back, I'm not even going to think 20 years back. 10 years back, all the people I was organizing with, the ones that weren't students and sold out and got jobs, they're all dead or in jail. Most of them dead. So I want power. I want to stop the genocide that's going on through the poisoning of the drugs that's done at the level of the cartel. Like, it's not us that know how to make fentanyl. I don't know, maybe you have a fentanyl lab in your pocket. I don't. You know, I don't own no fucking planes to bring this shit in, right? And so we want change that matters. We want to stop this. So the way to do that is deal with the people who control the land, because who controls the land controls the power, because land is power. And as Duddy Kravitz says, buy land because they're not going to make any more of it. But don't buy it, steal it, because it's already stolen.
Well, and I think to that point, like, the planning department has been helping us sit in our processing of the province's decision to shut down our local safe injection site, and trying to help us understand all the different ways that connects into their toolkit. So
I would like to make a
very
comment that you were supposed to make at the beginning. And
yes,
you
about
didn't.
Alan Ryan.
Yeah, of course, Alan Ryan. We'd like to thank our comrades in Belfast that we have been organizing with, the so-called dissident Republicans that are organizing in their community for sovereignty, for the withdrawal of British occupation in the north and of internment by remand, and for Alan Ryan, who was assassinated by the British government by collusion because he was organizing drug youth and poor Irish youth to get the fucking Brits out and do their own thing. So the 32 CSM has always been good to us. They have a place called Creagity Community Center, which is in Derry. It's run by, like, vulnerable youth, for vulnerable youth. And heads up to them when the Ruse Island shit was going on and I was on hunger strike, there was like a media blackout. The Irish comrades were the only ones there for them. So a moment of silence for all our dead. There are more than 1,000 this year that have died. And a moment of silence for those in the belly of the beast here and in the belly of the beast in the British Empire by the Brits who are arresting Irish, the same way they're doing to the indigenous people here. They just like to kill and steal. And they call themselves Americans. They're Brits too. Fucking Brits.
I just said there's that voice of grief, that voice of resistance is very important. And so even in our presentation, Rosa, we're really out of time, so I'll give you the last question. Rosa, how does the advice and expertise from the LEWG members, how will it be used as the planning team moves forward with your official planning review?
Yeah, Rosa, we want to know.
Thank you, David and Char, and thanks for the initiation. So I don't know how many people here are land use planners or work with land use planners at municipalities. I'm assuming not too many. But as we've mentioned today, it's a very interesting partnership to bring lived expertise right into land use planning decisions. We are a team of people who are looking at things like zoning and proposals from developers and new policy tools, and to really bring this expertise and insight right to the forefront of our work. We are just about to launch our official plan, Kitchener 2051, which helps us plan for the next 25 years in our community. And as part of that, we are updating our housing needs assessment. This is a tool that historically was sort of a numbers game, how many single detached houses do you need, how many townhouses, how many condo units, and it was really sort of a mathematical exercise between housing typology and population numbers. This is the first time that we're really expanding the scope of that to take a much more comprehensive lens and a much more social planning focused approach to understand all spectrums of housing and lack of housing, and to really collect these stories and this anecdotal evidence to make it a more qualitative exercise. And instead of making it a numbers game, really making it a qualitative understanding of what our community needs in terms of space and supports and opportunities and partnerships and connections. And so really bringing our official plan work to the LEWG consistently over the next 18 months will make sure that their voices are embedded into our official plan and that their insights are reflected into our land use vision and our policy planning work going forward. So I know I'm new to the group, Char, but really excited to be building this relationship with the LEWG and really helping their voices come through what is typically a very bureaucratic and sort of government-based land use planning document.
One final
No,
thing
go-
I'd like to say
Folks, we have
is
time.
before you sit with the city and negotiate, seriously, have your own organizations. Have like some sort of power base, preferably among the people that you're working. If you're homeless, organize your community. If you're a student, organize your community. Because if not, they'll come and they'll have these empty consultations and their commissions and their whatever, and you'll come and they'll listen to you, and then they'll just like, okay, we listen to you. You need to
Julian,
be
just,
able to push.
we're out of time. Okay, so we're out of time, but thank you. Do you want to just quickly?
Yeah, I was going to just ask you, David, as a wrap-up maybe, what would you say to people in the audience who are thinking about starting a LEWG, don't know where to start or haven't done it before? Do you have any final tips or reflections?
I mean, I think you can tell that there's lived expertise is the experience of being traumatized by the state. And so trying to work then with the state is very challenging, right? And I think one of the things to be very mindful of when you're doing this work is that, the more you do lived expertise well, the more threatening you are to to politicians, to different actors in your community. And so it's important to be very adaptable and flexible to navigate it. Like, it's not going to be, I don't think you're ever going to have a static model, right? I think it's important to make whatever you're doing with lived expertise to have it be, first off, have it be rooted in community enough that they have resources to keep doing stuff in community while you're trying to do a lived expertise process, but also to be able to, go through all the, the tension points and all those dynamics. So I would just say adaptable, be flexible, and know that it's going to be fundamentally at the tensions of power. And so go in with kind of clear eyes on that. Anyways, and that's our little presentation. We want to pass it off over to our colleagues at the People's Action Group who have a wonderful video that they want to share as well. Let me move a line. Oh, okay. Oh, you know what?
Do I have to talk?
No.
We'll say God.
That's your prerogative. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Rebecca Haynes, and I'm with the People's Action Group in Kitchener. I'm just going to wait. Sorry, I'm not used to public speaking, so. Okay, so we've heard about the power of sharing stories. A group of people, myself included, who have lived below the poverty line, connected with a playwright from Watercourse Theatre to share our stories of lived experience. Together, we turned those stories into a play, which was eventually filmed. Audiences had expressed a need for those stories to continue to be shared. Today, you are going to see a few of those scenes. This play speaks of our experiences with homelessness, precarious housing, or hidden homelessness. It also portrays the impact of mental health and the red tape that gets in the way while navigating the system and while trying to access resources and support or help. Please note that not everyone is playing their own story. However, all parts of the play are played by the co-creators. And then we'll have a few minutes, hopefully, of afterwards for questions. Thank you.
Hey, Val, I was wondering, since it's your first week at work and all, would you like to go out for lunch today? Sorry, Val, do you have a moment? Val, do you have a minute? Val!
Yeah,
Do you have a moment?
sure, Connie.
You seemed a bit out of it there.
Yeah, sorry. Sometimes it's noisy in my head, and there's a lot going on. I have mental health issues, and sometimes it takes me longer than other people to catch on to everyday interactions.
Mental health issues, huh?
Okay, oh my gosh, how do I respond? How am I supposed to react to this? I don't know what to say to her now. I know other people who have mental health issues. My aunt has mental health issues, but she's also very crazy. What if I say something wrong and upset Val? Maybe I shouldn't be interrupting her right now. I don't know what to say or do. This is weird. What if she gets mad? What if she just suddenly says something to me and I don't know how to respond, and then I respond wrong and that makes her even more upset and she blows up? What if she starts getting really mad and doing crazy stuff and I don't know how to de-escalate? I don't know what's going on. And what kind of mental health issues are we talking about? There's so many out there. Can I ask her? No. Is she some sort of schizo? Is that what she's saying? Does she have a problem with drugs or alcohol? Is that what's causing it? You know, I just remembered I'm all out of shampoo. I have to do some shopping and run a few errands at lunch today anyway. Maybe another time. She looks crazy.
Why are you upset all the time?
You don't look like you've been homeless.
You think you're so smart and know everything.
She has pink hair. She must be homeless.
Why do you always look so mad?
Only losers ride bikes instead of driving a car.
Those people don't want to work. They just want to collect their government checks.
You look like you're lazy. You never listen to me.
Oh, you'll get over your depression.
But we don't have to be like that.
It must be really tough, you're being depressed.
I like it when you turn the television down while we talk.
You have kind eyes.
We should get to know those people better before we make judgment on them.
Wow. You're brave to ride a bike on the street, and it's healthier too.
You have a nice smile.
Cool hair. It looks fun.
You have an opinion on many things. Can I get your advice?
You're a warm and friendly person. Hey, what's going on? Are you having a difficult day?
Hey, Val, I was wondering, since it's your first week at work and all, would you like to go out for lunch today? Sorry, Val, do you have a moment? Val, do you have a minute? Val!
Yeah.
Do you have a moment?
Sure, Connie.
You seemed a bit out of it there.
Sometimes it takes me a little longer to catch on to everyday interactions. And sometimes it's noisy in my head. There's a lot going on. I have mental health issues.
Oh, is it okay if I interrupt you?
Sure, sometimes you'll need to interrupt me.
Is there anything I should be aware of? Any way I can support you here?
I'm not sure.
Okay, well, maybe let me know. So for lunch, there's a fabulous Mexican place on the next block, but the burgers across the street are amazing.
Let's go.
You're recycling, good for you. Thank you very much.
What the hell do you think you're doing? Get out of my recycling bin. This is private property. My private property. Get off my lawn. And put those bottles back in my blue box.
I worked at the Waterloo Inn for 24 years. Do you remember the Waterloo Inn? It was a great place, but it closed in 2015. I've never drank, did drugs, smoked. I haven't even started a fight in all my years. When he was a newborn, I took my son and we left his father, Adam. A is for Adam. Adam was an alcoholic and a very abusive man. 10 years later, I married Bob. B is for Bob, and I lived with him for 20 years. I supported him financially. I got a severance pay from the Waterloo Inn, and he was more than happy to help me spend it.
Honey, I love you. You know I'll always be around to support you.
Unfortunately, Bob wasn't saying those nice words to me. He was talking on his cell phone with his girlfriend of over 10 years. After I lost my job, I couldn't really get back on my feet. Like Adam, Bob was an alcoholic and abusive man. And when he hit me one time too many, I left. This time, I left for good. I lived in my car. It was a small car. I could go to the community center and get a shower, and they would give me towels and hygiene products. I did my laundry at my friend's house, and I always was on the lookout for a 24-hour restaurant where I could use their facilities at night. But I couldn't stay in their parking lot because the police would come along and tell me to move. So I would have to look for a dark place to sleep, usually in bushes. And usually I was swarmed with mosquitoes in the middle of summer. In addition to using the food bank, I also volunteered at a downtown church to hand out food hampers to the needy. And for doing this, I received a little bit of extra canned goods. But I needed money. Money for gas and money for car insurance. I met Charlie. C is for Charlie, at the church that handed out food. One day, someone there referred to me as Charlie's wife, and he said,
Marion's not my wife, but I wish she was.
I overheard this, and I asked Charlie out for a coffee. When we were out, Charlie taught me all about collecting bottles and cans. When we went out collecting, we often got $40 at least in bottles and cans. But he wasn't good with his money. Every time he got about $5, he wanted to run off to the store, just like a little kid. But not to the candy store, to the beer store. He turned out to be abusive as well as an alcoholic. The only relative I could turn to was my cousin David. So I went to live with him and his wife, and I took care of their 2 children. My cousin David also turned out to be an alcoholic and physically abusive man. D is for David.
I'll give you the first shot.
At 65 years old, David and his wife gave me a midnight curfew. And one night, I came home about 4 minutes late. The door was locked. They wouldn't answer the door, and I ended up sleeping in my car. It was the coldest night of the year. The day I had a car accident, instead of being concerned for me, things came to a head with David. But God led me in the right direction. He led me to contact the women's shelter, and I spent 3 months there. And finally, I received a 1-bedroom, geared-to-income apartment in a seniors building.
Hi there. Are you new to the building?
Hi, I'm Marion.
I'm Earl. I live downstairs. Want to go for coffee sometime?
That's Earl. He's 10 years younger than me. And he doesn't drink. But
You know something I've noticed, that people who use walkers, they're not very intelligent.
hold on. There's a pattern here. Adam, Bob, Charlie, David, Earl. A, B, C, D, E. I don't want to keep growing this collection. I'm still a caring and generous person, including to the alphabet men. God put me here to help people, but now I keep my own space.
When I was little, I had my first seizure. I was diagnosed with epilepsy, and I was put into life skills from grade 6 to grade 12. When I was done high school, it took me 2 years to find a job in a restaurant. One night, a bunch of university guys were leaving the restaurant. One asked me if they could leave through the back door. It was closer to their cars. Said, sure. He said to his group, we can go out that way. It said so. I saved until I had enough money to move in with my best friend. The guy we were living with turned out to be a cocaine addict, so we had to leave. I stayed at my mom's for 6 months until I moved in with my boyfriend. We live in the basement of a house, but the rent is still high. I work, but it's never enough. Don't even like talking about being poor. Who are you?
Who am I, you ask? Are these coupons not a clue? I am Super Saver. I'm an expert tactician and problem solver. I uncover all the sales, the half-price meat, the items before their best before dates. I can make a gourmet meal from items purchased only at the dollar store. I'm also a complimentary protein grandmaster. I'm incredibly resourceful. I've taught myself to sew. I use shugu on my footwear. I have encyclopedic knowledge of thrift stores and online donation groups. My arch enemy is inflation, and I fight it with all my superhero prowess, intellect, and budgeting strategy genius.
I am the shearer, and my superpowers are twofold. One, I cut through bureaucracy. Two, I fight for sheer transparency in how the system works. I have unbelievable patience, politeness, and persistence in my crusade against needless red tape. I expose little-known practices that result in people not being treated equally. I have two arch-enemies, bureaucracy on one side and those who game the system on the other side. I am the shearer, and I fight for simplicity and fairness.
I am Hope Man. I specialize in the feat of being able to carry on even though I am in the depths of despair. I have taught myself to focus on gratitude for the things that I have, but I don't have a lot. But I will never give up. I have many superpowers. One is being kind to others. I volunteer both at the food bank and at the Red Cross. I have two arch enemies. One is ignorance. Two is ridicule. There are those that don't know who I am, and there are those that want to know who I am. But let them say what they will about me, for I know who I am, and I know what I am. I am Hope Man.
I am Invisible Woman. My superpowers. Wait, that's your superpower? You're invisible?
Yes? That's not a superpower in this world.
Why not?
Because we're all invisible.
Hi, I'm calling about my car insurance accident claim about my concussion and chronic pain.
But you already had brain injury before this accident, according to our insurance file.
Yes, and I've had another one in the car accident.
These things are hard to prove without documentation. We rely on your doctor's assessment.
Can you feed yourself?
Yes, doctor, but I need help from my worker planning my groceries and cooking.
Can you dress yourself?
If I have help from my PSW to pick out my clothes for the next day.
Can you bathe yourself?
If I have help getting into the shower.
Your doctor says you can feed, you can bathe, you can dress yourself. So you're not eligible for any more assistance. It doesn't matter what your personal support workers say.
I either need a lawyer to fight my insurance company, or I need a new doctor. I can't afford a lawyer, so.
You can't have two GPs at the same time. And I see you're on medication for chronic pain. I would have to do an assessment before I continue that.
But I pass out from pain if I don't take my medication.
That's my policy.
I used to be a pastry chef, but I can't work anymore, so I'm on ODSP. It covers my medical devices like my walker and cane. My insurance company won't pay for these. ODSP also covers my knee brace, which fell apart after 2 months.
ODSP only covers new knee braces every 6 months. If you're beginning to feel better, you may not need a new knee brace.
I want to go to physio to get stronger. There's a 3-month wait for physio that's covered by OHIP.
Look, we're really busy here. What's your issue?
I have chronic pain.
Oh, chronic pain. That's not easy to treat. Most people here have one specific problem that a couple of physiotherapy sessions can cure. Yours is more general. I don't think we can help you here.
I have severe chronic pain, and I'm worried because I've started having blackouts.
As a brain specialist, I can tell you that your blackouts are not typical with your diagnosis.
Maybe that's even more of a reason to be worried about them.
That information isn't helpful to me. Those types of blackouts are not standard. So I don't think they're related, and I don't treat chronic pain.
You've come to the hospital for chronic pain? Right. Why don't you take a couple Tylenols? We're not going to give you narcotics.
I came to emerge because I'm in a lot of pain. I'm not asking for narcotics. I'm asking for help.
You do have a brain injury, and your file shows you've had them before. There's no magic bullet here. You know the drill. Do your exercises, work on your goals, and be patient.
But it's not all bad. I'm also applying to work at the Raw Carrot Social Enterprise to make and sell soup. I volunteer and I organize a communal garden. I can't control this healthcare maze I've been navigating for years, but I can decide how to react to it. I choose not to let it control my life.
When I had my first breakdown, they told me at the hospital that I was depressed. I protested. I'm not depressed. I just tried to kill myself. That's how little I knew about mental health back then. In 1988, I was a single mom living with my 9-year-old daughter, Daphne. I'd been a voluntary patient in psychiatric ward for 2 months. While I was in the hospital, Daphne stayed with her father and his wife. One night, my ex told me on the phone, "By the way, I'm going to take full custody of Daphne." I told him over my dead body. I knew I had to stay calm and act right away. I'd been in the psych ward long enough to see other people lose custody of their kids because of their hospitalization. All it took was 5 minutes with a lawyer. I went to the nurse's station and got an evening pass. I drove to Daphne's father's house, trying to think of a plan. Then I asked him if I could take Daphne for ice cream. Once I had her in the car, I asked Daphne who she wanted to live with, assuring her she could see the other parent whenever she wanted. She wanted to live with me. I was still trying to think of a plan. All I could think of was to call my brother in Ottawa and ask if I could move in with him. If I didn't return to the psych ward that night, they'd call the police, so Daphne and I went there next. They couldn't keep both of us in the hospital, so my psychiatrist agreed to discharge me. I called my ex and lied that I had an overnight pass for Daphne and I to stay in my apartment. The next day we drove to Ottawa. 24 hours after he told me he was going to take custody of Daphne, I telephoned him and said we'd move to Ottawa. He had a number of choice words for me, including crazy bitch. My brother in Ottawa was not friendly. He took away my bank book and my passport and intentionally damaged my car so I wouldn't drive. The day he disappeared with Daphne on a visit that neither she nor I consented to, I called the police. That's how I got back my ID and how Daphne and I ended up in a shelter. Then my brother wanted custody of Daphne. I found a basement apartment where a CAS worker came for a mother-daughter visit. After we talked, the social worker said, "I don't see any reason to intervene. If you ever need any help, give me a call." I was on disability and never had enough money. The hydro guy was so used to coming by to cut off my electricity that one day, in sympathy, he gave me $5 and said, "Here, take this and go have coffee with a friend." For years, Daphne and I kept getting evicted and moving every few months. Years later, I moved to my current rent care to income apartment, and now I'm the most stable I've ever been. My daughter is the reason I'm still alive. When I reach that pinnacle of suicidal feeling, I remind myself, my mother was not a good mother, but I am a good mother, despite my illness. And my daughter deserves to have her mother with her.
All right. Thank you very much to both of our session presenters today. We now have about 18 minutes for questions, so I would invite folks to have a seat at the presenters table, and we will take questions for both presentations.
Okay, if you want my phone number, I'll call my wife and ask. Sorry. Okay, here's the link.
All right. Questions?
Questions for the first panel, for the city panel, the city planners. So I think a great job having that group and kind of incorporating this in your planning. I think that's great. And I know there's probably lots of communities of ours that we've had some discussions with our local league about trying to do something like that. My question, I'm curious, has there been any public restriction from, or not restriction, but fight back from, constituents, people who may have negative views on the homeless people with lived experience, having some, putting up roadblocks, making it more difficult to do the work that you're trying to do. And if there is, what are some things that you've done to kind of overcome that?
So one thing that we did deliberately with our lived expertise working group is after the year 2 pilot, we moved it into a city facilitated committee, but we deliberately did not do a typical advisory committee format. Because we're having trauma-informed discussions, it was really important to the group that we continue to have a space where people felt free. So it is a group discussion, but it's not open to the public. It's a closed discussion. And so really the trauma-informed stories are ones that we share in those experiences, and then we use that as an influence for some of the work moving forward. Kitchener is like any community. We face similar challenges. There is public concern, there's public fear, there's public uncertainty on what housing is going to look like. And when we have visible homelessness that's increasing as a result of the pandemic and all the systemic factors that have got into it, there is more of a discussion. I think what we've tried to do and what we continue to focus on is we're not there to talk. The purpose of the LEWG is not to validate or to talk about safety concerns that maybe the community has. The purpose is to understand the lived expertise, the experiences, learn from those experiences, and really use that expertise to inform our policy decision moving forward. So certainly there is concern, there's fear in the community, but it's not our mandate, it's not our focus. It's really to say this is where we're at. And, there are many reasons why we got to where we are right now. We're looking for a path forward. We're looking for solutions. We're not here to blame anyone. We're not here to try to, anticipate exactly what it's going to look like. What we're saying is, if it's a good idea, if it's informed by lived expertise, we're willing to try it.
I live on Vancouver Island and we've started to work quite extensively with people with lived experience. And what we're finding there to be some issue with is in regards to properly funding, because your expertise is something that should be properly paid for and is unfortunately still not across the board. So my curiosity is, how have you been able to navigate some of the costs in putting this together, and is there a solution that you have found that works well as a model that could be replicated for other communities that want to work with people with lived experience?
So with our Housing for All implementation, we were very honest with council back in 2020 that changing the way that we deliver housing and the way we talk about housing is different, and there needs to be budget allocation with that. So our council did develop an affordable housing fund of $1 million that is used for many different avenues. So whether it was before the development charges changes came in Ontario, we were affordable housing projects, we were covering development charges, and so there's many things that fund was used for. But you have to be very open with your council to say, the lived expertise is not free. like we go out and we pay for engineers, we pay for other advice. This is professional advice that we're receiving. And one thing that my favorite part of the meeting is the first half an hour that we have dinner together. So we unpack what happened during the week or since we've seen each other since. That's where we really developed, casual friendships and nice conversation. And then once we're full and everyone's got, we figured out who ate Char's pizza. That's when we get to the agenda and start to get to business. So, I think that's really important that lived expertise is expertise and you have to pay for expertise. And starting together by sharing a meal together sets a really nice tone, I think. And that's, it's my favorite part of the meeting.
And we're not allowed to get sushi anymore because it make Garrett really sick.
Grocery store sushi.
We got sushi. Okay, it looked good. Me and David had to go shopping. So we got sushi.
And I think just to put some numbers on the table, I mean, for the first 2 years of the project, it was a partnership with the Social Development Center, and so that gave a bit more flexibility to help for the first 2 years figure out some of those kinks. And right now, the Social Development Center, when we work with governments, we advocate for a standard of a $50 an hour rate for lived expertise, and so the city is in line with that right now.
We get paid big bucks. Great. Don't tell my wife though, she thinks I would be cold looking.
Hi, thank you guys for all of your presentations, they were fantastic. My question is with the political climate ever changing and ever switching, what measures are you taking in terms of protecting this group from continuing to do the great work and the valuable work that's happening in the community? Given that our political climate is ever changing, programs are being funded on a regular. How do we instill that protection for these people with lived and living?
I think the best way to do that is have roots in the community. From my own experience, I've spent about a fourth of my 10 years in jail or on house arrest for different political charges. And the reason I haven't gotten one conviction, except for throwing chocolate milk on stock all day, is because we have support in the community. The community sees the work we're doing. They see that we're out there patrolling the community, getting rid of the xylazine fentanyl that's poisoning people. So when people see that work, you get to control the narrative. And by getting to control the narrative, you get to switch the picture, because the picture, the way the conservatives are putting it and the neoliberals, is that you have the deserving poor and the undeserving poor, and now they're floating these words like human rights. And so we're okay, fine, we'll accept the term human rights. What is a right? A right is something that is inalienable. You have it because you are human, right? It's not a privilege. Housing is not a privilege. Food is not a privilege. Having the right to exist is not a privilege. You have that because you have the right to be human. So without those roots in the community, you don't have a way to push within the city to get them to the table, and you don't have a way to resist the neoliberal narrative.
Maybe if I can just add to Julian's comments there. Thanks, Char. So Julian spoke a lot about the community support and community being, backing the LEWG, but I think, I don't know if we explained today, but Garrett and I are both directors of planning teams at the city, and so we have frequent access to senior leadership and to council, and so I think part of our role is to tell the story to the senior leadership and council and talk about the improvements to the surveys, to the rental replacement bylaw, to the official plan, and to routinely bring that work back and say, here's how we would have done it under the old status quo, here's how much better and stronger and more powerful it is now with the lived experts' input and influence into this work. And so I think in our role internally in the government system, by being able to continually tell that story and that narrative, we see the buy-in and support in the organization.
And again, this is where I think it's having an adaptable and diverse ecosystem of lived expertise. I think that's one of the reasons we're really blessed in Waterloo region, is that for example, the People's Action Group has been around for almost 20 years now. And then we have multiple agencies running peer worker programs. And then now the city has this lived expertise working group and the Social Development Center. We're working now with the region on kind of a roster of lived expertise consultants. So there's lots of different ways that people with lived experience are able to inform the system within our community, and that way we can try and pivot depending on where the political waters are. And I think the biggest piece is actually just being honest with all of the people in this. Like, there are times, like, our lived expertise consultants, like, I'll have honest conversations like, today we're gonna have to censor ourselves because our funding is important. Today we're gonna have to pick some really important messages to get across from council. Like, I mean, I think every video, like, they said so much more critical stuff, more valuable stuff than what we were able to make the video, but we had a conversation about how do we ensure that we can make sure that we can get another, some longevity with this project, and that was, when we got the buy-in from the group that they wanted to do that, then we were able to craft a message that made that work.
But there's also times that data goes like this.
And that's also part of the life. Heather?
Read your contracts with the municipalities and make sure you negotiate those contracts and don't just assume that every clause is just a technical clause. Make sure you read them because it's really important.
STC did.
Those discussions ahead of time so that everybody is conscious about what are in those documents. I think that that's really important.
Yeah, because we got screwed over for the support for the tent city at the Ruse Island because there was this thing, Article 99, I think it was, which said that we're not allowed to publicly criticize the city. And so because the Allen Ryan People's Community Defense Brigade, which is not part of the LEWG, but I'm a member, Don's a member, was running it, and we got arrested and all that crap. And the SDC, which is not the LEWG, put out a statement in support of us. The city said that we criticized it, and they brought up this small Article 99 that, like, we thought was a technical article, this and this. So it's really important because they'll screw you any way they can once they don't. Yeah, so make sure.
Yeah, so like it literally had nothing to do with the LEWG. There was a couple LEWG members involved in it.
But the LEWG did support it. One of our first things in year one was
And we
support for
almost lost,
encampments.
all our funding for LEWG, we got yelled at council, it was brutal.
But we didn't, because we figured out a strategy of how to navigate that, and we were lucky. And we were lucky that there were allies throughout this region who were able to help us navigate this, and we're very and it was very interesting to learn from, for example, the planning departments on some of the strategy of how to best navigate that as well.
Without their alliance, without their help and their expertise, I don't know where we would have went. Like, it really was that collaboration and cooperation that helped it reinvent, if that makes sense.
I know Rebecca also wanted to share a bit more about living below the line and how you can follow up with that.
Oh, just because anyone watching this, because some of the information was not correct, just if anyone wanted to, like, our whole play wasn't able to be shown, but most of it was. If anyone wanted to be able to share this to educate, it would be best to, to connect with Watercourse Theater. And Kate is the director. Or you can, yeah.
It's on the MCC website, you say.
I think it's on the MCC, but if you type in Watercourse Theater, you would find it. And just one comment, like, just from all the sessions, but just in general, I think as a community, that we're the ones that are gonna make a difference. Like, that's really how we're gonna see change, so.
Always get new voices too, because if you have the same voices on every group, which a lot of people do, right? There's always that one person that wants to see something but scared. If you pull them in and be like, just talk to you, and they say something, it might actually change the world. Just say it. And I'm gonna go cut down a whole bunch of birds.
Or you can slip acid in the coffee.
Great. All right. Thank you again very much to all of our presenters.
Thank you, everyone.